Yes, I am not at the studios of Saturday afternoon's main event. I am, of course, still here for the ninth, that's right, folks, the ninth consecutive week under the umbrella of the Triple C era, because me and me alone, of course, here on Saturday at 12 o'clock, is here to provide for you. I am not here, like I said, in New York, but I am here in the South because I have come to bless the South of my presence here. Hopefully you guys had a good Thanksgiving, because I know I certainly have. Because why? Once again, that piece of hot garbage phenomenal one is not here. Not here. He'll never appear on this program. But I do have two co-hosts today. Two, that's right, two. Now the first guy I'm going to talk about, he is, again, a staple of Saturday afternoon's main events. We like him. Actually, y'all like him. I don't care for the guy. But he is the limousine ride, jet flying, wheeling, dealing son of a gun. I will never give him two claps. And his name is the Peeps Bitch.
I'll take that one. Woo! Yes, back on the air. Another great Saturday afternoon. We give you laughs, good times, and all the wrestling news possible. The three tenets of a great Saturday afternoon. Of course, if you want to join us wherever you are, whether it's Twitch, whether it's on Twitter, X as it's called now, or any other places, we'll give you the handles. First off, Instagram to get a hold of us is at Saturday afternoon _main event. If you want to get to us on X, it's at Saturday Main. And of course, if you want to get to us on TikTok, Saturday afternoon ME. Oh, and by the way, before we throw it to our next co-host, just a request to our esteemed uncle. It's the holidays. It's Thanksgiving weekend. It's all about food and family. Is it a request for at least the rest of this show that you could, for my sake, could you not hammer your nephew as much, just to go without saying anything today, in the name of the great Dominic Mysterio? Would you be able to do that for one show, just for this week?
Dominic Mysterio, I love that man because, as I've always said, he is the greatest North American champion of all time. Anything for Dom Mysterio. But for you, Nate, no chance. No. Let's get to the third co-host. Now, he is a good friend of mine. To you guys, he's Mr. 411. He's always been a staple from the original Saturday afternoon's main event some 25 years ago. His name is Mr. 401 to you, but to me, it's Christopher Morton. Welcome.
How you guys doing? I'm still recovering from Thursday's horrible football loss again. As we, by the way, I finally did a show for those who want to check it out on YouTube, Morton's Law Podcast. Check it out and enjoy my misery of all my sports teams. And
plug it away.
Thursday was no different. What a disaster! But we're not here to talk sports. We're here to talk pro wrestling. It's good to see you guys. Good to see everybody. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot. Hi guys.
Hi, guys.
That's right. Now, which has always been a staple before we start the show, and of course, if Snake did request, and of course, I will still go against the piece Snake, because once again, that piece of hot garbage was nowhere to be found. And
I tried, folks. I tried.
On Saturday afternoon's main event, you see, I'm going Saturday night's main event. But because we will be talking about everything WWE, AEW, we have a lot to talk about. But first, let me toast to the fact that hot garbage phenomenal one will never appear on this program.
By the way, Uncle Triple C, doesn't Nate look good today? He looks really good. He doesn't look a day past dead.
Well, I'm still alive.
You're still alive. Well, yeah. Hey! Oh! I'm drinking. You don't drink on this damn show. You don't drink on this damn program. You don't drink, Nick. Thanksgiving to everybody. Hopefully, you guys spent time with your loved ones and you had a good time. But, Mr. 41, of course, right? Of course, you can drink. Right? There's no problem with that. But again,
It's going to be a long hour. Oh, boy.
Interesting. But anyway, now since all the formalities are out the way, so now, as always, we will start the show this week with Wrestling Crash Course. So, you hear that music? You know what that means. For the first topic of the day, I have to say, this is probably the best segment on Monday night, this past Monday night, because I'm sure it was talked about through social media, everywhere. We can talk about matches, but the New Day saga. I mean, if you, as a wrestling fan, maybe if you didn't care about New Day, leading up to all of this past Monday, you had to care, and I can't wait. I hope they open up the damn show at 8:00 on Monday night with the New Day. I'll start with you, Nate. What were your thoughts when you saw Kofi and Xavier going to the back and basically laying bombs on each other?
You could tell once they stepped through that curtain, something was going to happen. And the reason why this story works is because there has been a 10-year investment on the New Day. For good, for bad, things that have happened between Kofi winning the belt, things that have happened with Woods, things that have happened with Big E, potentially career-ending injury. And then all of that with the fans following all of them, their trials and tribulations, to then go see them in the back and have, which is probably the most personal sounding argument that they had, throwing bombs at each other, personal things going on. Well, you could have done better if you would have paid attention. Oh, well, we were all for you if you didn't lose to Brock, which I didn't expect to hear Brock's name uttered on television. Oh, you lost to Brock in 9 seconds. Oh, they're going back and forth. It's personal, it's palpable, and it's believable. And the great part of a story is when either side can make an argument and you can actually identify or believe with each side. And that's the reason why that works so well. What do you think, Chris?
Oh my god, yeah, to your point, Uncle Triple C, like this was not interesting for a while. And then they just made you care out of nowhere, just like that, boom. Because I was like, okay, we know where it's going. Someone's going to turn on the other. Who, we don't know yet. We don't know. I mean, it's funny, a lot of what Kofi has said recently, too, can make him look like a heel. So it's not just Woods. And they're going back and forth. And, right, I mean, it was the shots taken at each other, just incredible. And, again, wants to make you see what's going to happen next. And Monday night now becomes must-see TV.
On the 10th anniversary that they're supposed to be celebrating, the New Day, and this is potentially what could be happening, a team could blow up right in front of your eyes.
Well, I fully expect, something explosive to happen. Expect to see Big E this Monday. Who knows? Maybe he'll calm the situation down. Although this is wrestling, so I do not foresee that. But hey, listen, as Chris alluded to before, it is definitely must-see TV. I can't wait for whatever they have planned for New Day. But whatever they have planned, I mean, I expect it to be good. Either way, if somebody turns on somebody, I expect it to be good. Think about it. Kofi has never been a heel as a singles wrestler because remember, New Day did start off as heels.
Yes.
But him as a singles wrestler, he's never been a heel. That's something to definitely look out for. You never know who may turn on each other, but we'll see what happens this Monday night. Next topic of the day on Wrestling Crash Course is Jade Cargill. We touched on it last week about maybe who done it. So the update, Mr. 411, on Jade Cargill.
Well, the interesting is the story that had broken during the week, which we later found out to be not true, is that the injury was legit. And everyone started to go, oh, wow, okay, so she's really hurt. It wasn't a story. It was a storyline within the storyline. And then we find out, courtesy, by the way, we talk about 25 years, 27 years of Saturday afternoon's main event. And the Peeps Nate finally earned his keep on this show by doing a little research and finding out that, in fact, this injury is not legit and it's all storyline. Jade is perfectly fine. So kudos to Nate. I'll give him 2 claps today just for that alone. Now, okay.
It's going to be one of those shows, folks. Yeah. But even last week, though, I remember when we talked about it, well, is this maybe writing her off for some sort of an injury? How bad is it? And I said that the way that everything sounds, it just sounds like some way to get Bianca in, because we know that the writing is on the wall, that there's going to be some kind of a feud between these two leading towards WrestleMania. And last week, I said that back then. I just think this is a big work. And that's the way it looked. And now that we know that it's a work, now we're going to find out how it is. But even more so, those women's tag team championships, they seem to be cursed. Because it seems like every team that wins that belt, either break up or one of the members gets hurt somehow. So maybe they might want to, exercise that belt or do some sort of exorcism or sprinkle holy water or do something to it. That's what it seems like.
The funny thing about those tag belts, Sasha and Bayley, years ago, they were the inaugural women's tag team champions, I believe, weren't they? Right, because they fought for those, to have those titles be created.
Yes.
And like to your point, I mean, those belts have really truly meant nothing. Let's be fair. They really haven't meant anything. Jade and Bianca, let's be honest. I mean, this is they're on their road to, we'll assume, WrestleMania. Me personally, I think Bianca is the one that did it. But storyline purposes, as far as these tag team titles go, women's tag belts go, they really haven't been anything. We'll see going forward what they do, but you have to figure they're going to strip Bianca and Jade of those tag team titles, and I'm assuming going to have a tournament. The only thing I don't like about that, if they're going that way, is the fact that, okay, you do have a tournament for the Women's Intercontinental Championship and the Women's United States Championship. Mm-hmm. So now what do you do with the women's tag team titles? I mean, it's going to be vacant.
I think what you should do, you get Bianca to say, look, my partner's hurt. We have to defend these championships. And this is usually when that 30-day stipulation, storyline-wise, kayfabe-wise, usually works. You have a built-in excuse to, got to defend the belts. Maybe she has to find somebody. Maybe she can't find somebody. I'll defend these tag team titles myself. And then you take the belts off of them that way. You don't strip them another tournament or whatever is the case. No fatal 4-ways with 14. You do it that way. You stick a team there and then you let them hold on to the belts. And then that further adds to the storyline of what happens with Bianca and with Jade Cargill going forward.
R.I.P. Jack Tunney.
Jack on to take Tunney, right?
Jack Tunney not in the Hall of Fame yet. What? Yeah, he's not in the Hall of Fame.
How is that even possible?
He should be. He definitely should be.
I agree. Little Jack Tunney there. And speaking of Jack Tunney, that'll be something that we'll be talking about old school later on in the segment. So it'll be 80s Survivor Series, but we'll deal with that later on in the show. Again, Pete Snake, Mr. 401, Christopher Morton, and me, Uncle Triple C, here live every single Saturday on Saturday afternoon's main event. Thank you guys for joining us. And now let's switch our attentions to the AEW pay-per-view last week, and that was Full Gear. We're not going to go through every single match.
No.
I will start with you, Nate. What were your overall thoughts of Full Gear as a whole? And did you leave Full Gear thinking like, okay, I'm more invested, or did you think like, okay, status quo and who cares?
I thought the show was okay. It wasn't great. It was definitely the main event. That main event was. I'll hold off on that. But usually I come on this show and talk about, for all of the things that AEW does wrong, they usually do pay-per-views right. For the exception of maybe 3 matches on this card, this was not that good of a pay-per-view at all. The main event definitely, okay. This is what I think is a problem with AEW as far as how they booked this, especially the main event with Orange Cassidy and with Moxley. First of all, Cassidy is not believable as a main event guy in that slot. We'll table that part. The second part is, if the entire storyline is that there is an incursion of wrestlers within AEW that are trying to run roughshod over the company, and you have one person that's supposed to be an AEW original, and guys are supposed to be watching his back, Why was the production not there to have at the beginning of the show guys from
What's going
AEW
on?
with bats, pipes, something out there in the back where they're watching Orange Cassidy's back? That was not there at all. So it did not make any sense at all to me how that went forward. Chris, what did you think?
This show is hot garbage. If you're Triple C, Uncle Triple C, if your producer has my tweet in regarding my star rating, if you'd be so kind to put up the star ratings, the main event, 2.5 stars. It was one of the worst main events you'll ever see. It was John Moxley doing his best Nick Gage impersonation. Just full garbage. I'm gonna bite you. I'm gonna do everything. Surprised there wasn't barbed wire, nails, you name it. I mean, the idea of John Moxley is getting sick to my stomach because he just has his mentality of what he thinks professional wrestling is, and it's not. And the fans don't care. There's silence during his promos. Anyone who's a fan of this garbage, you need to have your head examined, okay? You need to, I don't know, CTE maybe came into your life a little early. It is so bad. The only match that was good on this show, of course, I mean, I shouldn't say the only match. That's not fair. You know what? There are a couple of those. I think the show stealer, which unexpectedly stole the show, was Mercedes Moné against Chris Statlander, which I gave 4 stars, which is probably one of the highest rated AEW women's matches I would ever give. That's how well worked this match was. And then, and by the way, they told a story. They worked on the leg. Mercedes worked like a legit heel. Everything made sense. The fans were into it. This is what you need to have more in your shows, Tony Khan. Not the Moxley garbage. And again, they overbook. Here's where they overbook. So you get a really good match between Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay. No question. I gave it 4.5 stars. Uncle Dave gave it 5.25, but that's the inflation scale.
Chris, one thing for sure, Dave Meltzer's ratings does not count. Only Mr. 411 because he gives you the correct information.
Right, and keep in mind he follows me. Morton's Law Podcast. Check it out. He follows me. So
plug.
Yes. But while the Ospreay match was good, and don't get me wrong, here we go. Here's the star ratings. Your producer is on point today, baby.
There you go.
That's why I am here in the South. So I gave the original people, I gave them the weekend off. Thank you.
Nice.
And I have somebody here in the South here. So you know what? The Southern hospitality might not be a bad thing. I may make it down here a little bit more often. But anyway, let's go on. Please continue.
So, okay, let's talk about the opening tag match. That was hot garbage. It was one of the worst matches ever. People didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what was happening. Max Caster went into business for himself, clearly. I mean, the fans started booing him. He went off. It looked like he went off script. And everything about that match was horrible. Nate, you agree, I hope.
Oh, it was too much chaos. I see what they were trying to do. The execution made it look like they didn't know what they were doing. Off cue, missed spots. There were things going on that took people's attention away from the way the match was supposed to go.
And while I liked Ospreay Fletcher, what rule, guys, take a guess what rule applied that made me turn it off?
How many times?
1, 2. 3,
Okay.
4, done.
What did it for me was the stair spot. You dump the man on his neck on the stairs, and the match is not over. So I turned it off, as I talked about on my podcast, and I watched the next match, which was what? Was that Garcia? I think it was Garcia was the next.
Yeah, I think the Garcia match was the second match. Yeah.
Okay, you know what? Let me give it a chance. I go back and I watch the end. And don't get me wrong, the ending was perfect. They actually did the ending right with Ospreay, with the turnbuckle brain buster or whatever you want to call that. But again, if the guy comes in with pre-existing neck injuries, how many times does he need to be dropped on it to win the match?
Yeah.
This is the problem with Tony Khan's booking. everything has to be over 20 minutes. Most of these matches were near 20 minutes when it didn't need to be. And I talked about it on my podcast, Ricochet and Takeshita. It was a good match for 12 minutes. But then Ricochet goes into, oh, this is the main event. I'm going to kick out of everything. And this is when we talk about the difference between him being in WWE and him being in AEW. In WWE, this match is 12 minutes, and he loses without kicking out 35 times when the match should already be over.
And the agents for the match would have made sure that it stuck to that point.
Yes, and it was good for 12. Don't get me wrong. It just when you do the same, and that's another thing New Japan, by the way, does too. And I've always said that even when New Japan was at its peak, you'll get a match that's 35 minutes, and around the 20-minute mark, it's like a reset. They go back to the beginning and they do the same stuff over and over again just to fill 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Overall,
yeah, that's my rant. Do you have anything?
I'm sorry. Overall, I was just gonna say, Chris, is that again, the pay-per-view, it wasn't terrible. So I'd be lying if I said it was terrible, but it was okay. And like you said, I mean, the main event the main event is supposed to get you to that high where you're like, okay, now we're ready for the main event. I'll be honest. So me and Nate, we decided to watch the show together. Nate, what was I doing right before the main event was about to start?
Drinking. That's what he was doing.
I did not care. I'm just sitting there like, I mean, am I supposed to get excited for this? I mean, come on. Listen, here's the sad part about AEW. Who was the most over guy on the card at Full Gear in New Jersey last week?
Boom Boom?
Yeah. Boom Boom. What was it, his son? And what was the Rizzler or whatever?
Right. I mean, come on. I mean, how pathetic is that? I'm sorry. Listen, usually their pay-per-views, like you guys said, they do deliver. But overall, I just felt like, it's too much. And you know what? We talk about WWE. We'll get to Survivor Series, on the second half edition of the Saturday afternoon main event. But I will say, I mean, having 12 matches, that is a lot of matches. And then, it feels like it's overbooked, like as Chris alluded to before. Everybody seems to kick out everybody's finishers. I mean, it's like you have 15, 20-minute matches, and then it's like you go back to the same thing all over again. It makes no sense. I mean,
to piggyback off your thought, is this 12 matches can be okay if every match isn't 20 minutes. You don't have to do a 4-hour pay-per-view every time. But for some reason, he has to do this. Every show has to end right around midnight. There's so much time you can take out of these matches. And the funny is, most of these matches don't have pre-show packages or pre-match packages. Only some of them do. So often you're going match to match with very little time to breathe. And I had heard this on another show, people talking about how the audience doesn't have any time to recover. You just blew yourself out of the audience. And now the next match, they're sitting on their hands because they're exhausted from cheering, like the Ospreay match, for example. Like the Terry Garcia match. Did it have any reaction? Like the fans didn't. Okay, aside from when Daniel Garcia won, they did pop for him, no question about it. Right. But aside from that, no one cared. I feel like the Swerve Lashley match, which I only gave 3 stars because I thought it was horrible. I mean, they didn't care about that either. And just there's a lot not to care about.
All right. So that takes care of AEW's Full Gear. So Nate, what are your thoughts? Well, actually, not what are your thoughts as usually before we do go to break. Do you have the ratings?
We have the ratings for one show because for whatever reason, maybe because of the holiday, that the AEW ratings haven't popped up yet. But for NXT, they got 632,000 and they did a 0.15 in the demo. So I guess we'll probably wait either today or maybe after the weekend is over, and then I'll probably get the numbers for Dynamite. But I would guess based on the last 3 or 4 weeks, it'll probably be about 600,000 because I think they're going to lose some audience because of the holidays.
Right. Well, last thing though, the funny part about this past Dynamite, the most over thing on the show was during Claudio and Ricochet's match. Something happened in the crowd, and the fans went nuts about it. And there were chants, and then there was a final reaction. I guess maybe someone got taken out. I imagine there was probably a fight or something. Right. But if you heard the crowd, you would have like, wait, why don't they react like that to what's going on in the ring?
Wow. It appeared like remember like those Raw after Mania, WrestleMania crowds, And I remember specifically when they were doing the wave, remember with Randy Orton and Sheamus in the ring, nobody came at that time, and then people were doing the wave, they didn't care. So, some of the fans probably, not that they hijacked the show like those Raw after WrestleMania crowds, but in that particular instance, right. There was a spot, like, why are the fans cheering? What was so loud? So something like you said happened. But to your point, in that match, so Claudio throws Ricochet over the railing, and then you see the spot where Ricochet takes a bottle of water and he starts drinking it. I'm like, that's nasty. Like, you're drinking somebody's water, or is that water left for you there and that was a planned spot? I'm like, that's bad camera work, Yes. And one more thing on Dynamite that really peeved me, and I was actually talking to a friend about that. And we talked about the Mercedes Moné Statlander match on Full Gear, which was a real good match. Now, here comes Mercedes Moné with Camille, and then already Camille is already like, okay, basically F you, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I quit.
Yeah.
Wait up to the payoff. That's where Tony Khan's booking to me, that's just horrible. I'm waiting for a long-term story with Camille where she's getting frustrated, and then for Camille to finally turn on her. And
she screws her. Right, she cost her the title. I agree.
Yes.
She would cost her the title to build. It's terrible. Nothing makes sense on this show.
Yeah, they hot shot an angle that this should have happened next year, sometime in like April, May. This should have been a longer term deal, but for whatever reason, they hot shot it and moved it on, and it's like next. Didn't make any sense.
Right. So that will mark the end of Wrestling Crash Course. Also marks the end of the first half-hour edition of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. Pete Snake, Mr. 401, Uncle Triple C here on Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. We'll come back with your questions, Survivor Series, and Old School. So we'll be right back after this. This is Sane. We are back here on Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. Of course, I am toasting for the simple fact that piece of hot garbage, Nate, your old tag team partner, the phenomenal one, he is not here for the ninth consecutive week on Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. Yes, I am not here in the studios of Sane, but I am here in the South. Because why? I am here with family, and I am down south at Southern Hospitality. My cameraman is not here, so of course I have a different way of doing the show today. But I do thank my family, the true family that I have here on Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. But anyway, I am here with one of the three hosts, Uncle Triple C here, and to my right,
it is Peeps Nate, and below me here,
Mr. 4-1.
There we go.
Every single Saturday. Hey, Nate! Please give them the handles while I toast to the fact that hot garbage is no longer here.
Well, I tried, folks. Here's the handles. For those that that are watching us on Twitch or on YouTube, thank you. It's Saturday Afternoon's Main Event to be able to watch us there. Instagram, Saturday Afternoons _main event. If you're watching us on X, it's at Saturday Main. And even on TikTok, it's Saturday Afternoons ME. Get to us on all of our handles. Get to us and continue to watch and grow and subscribe and keep looking at our show. And we thank you for joining us.
Exactly right. We do thank all you Nimrods for joining us here every single Saturday. You see Mr. 401 there. You see the shirt. You see what it says, Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. See in the background for me. So every single Saturday, 12 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Mountain Time, 11 o'clock Central, every single Saturday here on all the social media handles, as Nate just alluded to before. So, but before we get to your questions, one thing is the next staple here on Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. Now, I may not be in the greatest city in the world because I'm here in the South, because I've come to bless the South. And hopefully in the future, I'll go bless the West Coast. Then there's a bit of center of the country. But today I am blessing the South here on Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. And I want to say one thing. Tags, Whether it's hook or by crook, you are still the biggest piece of Brooklyn trailer park trash because there's only one borough where I am from. That is Queens, New York, the greatest borough of all, in my hometown of NYC. That takes care of
What happened to Taz, by the way? Why is Taz off TV so long?
Because why? That piece of garbage is no longer on TV because he had a knee replacement, and I hope he never walks again. Never walks again.
Oh, good
Never
grief.
walks again. He doesn't deserve it.
Are you saying they should break his neck again?
Break his neck. Cock the high Jermaine. I wish they did that to him. But anyway, now, time for your questions. This is one of Nature's favorite part of the segment here on Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. Here's your question. Of course, if you have a question or anything like that, or a comment or whatever, you can always reach us on all our social media handles. So thank you, of course, as always, for your questions. So if your questions don't appear this week, we'll definitely put it on next week. So the first question of the day, guys.
Yes. And this one is Master Sean 007. Greetings, gentlemen. And Uncle Triple C. You know, it's a holiday weekend. Relax. Tranquilo, as they say. There you go. Here's the question.
You Andrade.
Yeah. What's the point of holding on to a wrestler that you aren't using and have no plans of using and paying to keep them to stay home? To me, that's just bad business. Your thoughts?
Are we talking about Ricky Starks here? Or like half the guys in AEW, Wardlow, how many Hobbs just returns? I mean, a lot of these guys are in exile. It's amazing. I mean, are we gonna jump into? Can we jump into that story now?
Might as well. I mean, you brought it up, so might as well say it.
Right.
Sure.
So Nate, talk about what happened this past week with Effie and GCW Ricky Starks.
Yes. Well, apparently, Ricky Starks was going to be part of the GCW show since GCW is going to be doing the Hammerstein Ballroom. Literally within a month of AEW finally going to play the Hammerstein Ballroom. Effie, who is a wrestler on the roster, did a podcast, and he was basically talking about certain things within the company of how Brett Lauderdale, who was the owner of GCW, was able to get the company going, and some of the things that he said within this podcast, we think, are what led to Ricky Starks being pulled away from that GCW show. Even though Ricky Starks has not been on television and he's been healthy in AEW television. But this is the quote, and it had something to do alluding to Tony Khan, his father Shad Khan, who is a multi-billionaire. This is the quote that Effie said, quote, Brett does not own a football team. Brett doesn't have a dad who pays him to stay away. I don't want this to be a personal thing. I don't. But hey, guys, that's the only game in town. It's fine. I can't stop you from running venues. But in my line of work, when TNA Impact wanted to run Center Stage GCW a month before and a month after, we're told we could not have those dates that we had secured before because it was competing with something that we were doing. And now it just seems the game and the respect has never gone both ways, and it's fine. We're not mad. Our people will be there. Our show will be great. We will show it. We'll show out. But it isn't fun to see that, like, we're out of so many ideas that are out there now that the timing is conspicuous to you showing up and doing that immediately after we announce that we're doing that. So it basically goes to Effie getting on the fact that AEW and GCW are booking so close the same venue. And we kind of alluded to that through our text threads talking and trying to figure out what they were doing. But we think that that's what kind of ticked off Tony Khan, those comments, and pulled Ricky Starks away from being on the GCW card. So that's where that came from.
By the way, answer this question for me. What is the big deal about them running a show at any point? I mean, those fans are quote unquote sickos. They're going to pay for their show also. You tell me they're not going to pay for both shows? Please make sense of that. Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. And it really actually sounds more like sour grapes than anything else. If you're going to run a show, first of all, GCW is doing fine. They're not they're not WWE caliber as far as making that kind of money. But the market that they run, which is kind of like a hybrid death match, kind of cruiserweight action-packed type of promotion, where there's a lot of violence. That's one of the things that they usually do. You'd think that they would be happy having the Hammerstein Ballroom and not worrying about if anyone booked a month before or a month after. Just happy to be there.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And I mean, yeah, you know what, Effie? F you, buddy.
Now that's a segue, pal.
Master Shaw 007, thank you for that question, and I hope we answered your question. We did, touch on Ricky Starks, but overall, I mean, having wrestlers not working but getting paid. Hey, you know what? God bless America.
So Ricky Starks goes back. I'm sorry, Uncle Triple City, to interrupt. So Ricky Starks goes back into witness protection. Is that what happens now? I mean, you could probably build a small company around all the guys that sit at home for AEW.
It's a crime. It's a crime. There's way too much talent for these guys to not being used the way they should be.
Let's talk about the whole Phoenix Pentagon situation. How about the fact that they've been trying to get out of their contracts and now they can't, and Tony Khan's finding loopholes, reasons to keep them when they were rumored to go to WWE 3-4 months ago, and now they're stuck there.
Yeah, we've seen both companies do this, where somebody gets injured and they'll hold on to a guy because they missed X amount of dates. So let's say your contract was going to expire in December, but you were out 2 months with an injury. So the company will tack on those extra 2 months until you can actually get out of your contract. And then by then, you still have the 90-day non-compete clause to deal with, and then you have to worry about trying to build up your name again and staying relevant, maybe having to come up with a new gimmick and a new name in another company because they've trademarked your name. Those kinds of things can be a backbreaker to a wrestler that's trying to compete and keep their name fresh when they've left a company. And I don't think that hoarding wrestlers for any sake that we talked about on this show, when WWE did it, when AEW was starting to gain a lot of traction, WWE was hoarding their wrestlers to make sure they didn't go to the competition. And it's counterproductive because at some point you're going to have to let these guys go.
Right. Master Sean 007, thank you very much for that question. So the second question of the day is from Tombstone City Adam.
Yes, and his question is, Brock Lesnar for next year's War Games, book it. Now, that's more of a statement than a question.
Right, that's not a question.
As far as Brock Lesnar go, I mean, we did hear his name mentioned with Kofi and Xavier this past Monday. Don't know if they did that on their own or if that was part of a whole thing, beginning to throw Brock Lesnar's name out there. Who knows? But I mean, you can't predict what will happen next year for War Games. But if Tombstone City Adam is saying book it, who knows? Maybe as a inside scoop for WWE. Thank you very much, City Adam, for that statement. The third question of the day is from.
Drum roll, please. There you go. Yes.
It's a great.
Will the final boss show up tonight?
Well, I think that will lead right into our Survivor Series. I'll start with you, 401. What do you think?
Based on the fact that he had already shown up previously at another PLE, what PLE was that they went off the air with him showing up at?
Was that? I'm trying to remember. Wasn't SummerSlam? Was it?
It was after SummerSlam.
It was after SummerSlam.
The stage is now set, and everything that we have seen now with the bloodline going into this, without giving away predictions just yet tonight, I think it has to make sense for him to appear in some way, shape, or form to cost one of the teams the match.
Agreed. Obviously, you still have a story to be told with the final boss, The Rock, and Cody Rhodes down the road. But as far as the bloodline goes, right, it has to make sense. As we were told, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, that he's pretty much free now, right? There's really nothing that he's doing as far as like film wise, anything like that.
Yeah, he just wrapped up doing a movie about a week or two ago, so he's free for the foreseeable future.
Another trash movie.
We're not going to touch on the movies because we have our own cinema in professional wrestling.
Yes.
So it should be interesting. So let's get to Survivor Series.
Yes.
Well, I mean, as far as final boss, for me personally, I think he's going to show up somehow. As Mr. Bowman said, he's going to cost somebody something. He's going to make an impact. Let's just put it like that. I think he's going to make an impact tonight.
Yes.
Let's go to Survivor Series. We'll start backwards, and then of course we're going to get to Roman Reigns and CM Punk, their segment last night also. But first, let's start backwards. We'll leave the main event last. LA Knight against a different looking Shinsuke Nakamura, new theme. What do you think? We're going to have a new United States champion? Or what you, Nate?
I hope so, because I understand they want to build LA Knight and have him have some sort of a lengthy United States title reign. But at the same time, you can only bring in Shinsuke Nakamura so many times, refreshed and renewed, and not do anything with him other than spit mist in the face and then have him run off. He's got to have an impact, and that impact has to have a result. So since this is the Survivor Series and this is one of the big main event premium live events that they do, if they're going to do a title change, it would have to be tonight. And I think you can stretch that and make this go into at least the Royal Rumble, if that's the plan. So I'm going to actually go on record and say that Shinsuke wins the belt tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, to your point, I think so here's what I think about when a wrestler comes out, the reaction that they get. Has it subsided? Has it been reduced? With LA Knight, you can't detect any of that. Like the fans still as over as it was when they were trying to build him to what he is now. So to take the title off of him, unless there is just a plan for a rematch where he regains it to maybe even get more over in a rematch win to chase the title now, we've often talked about, right? The person chasing the title is more over than he is holding the title.
Yes.
So I guess in some kind of screw job fashion, Nakamura wins. He can't win clean. So obviously involving the Mist or any kind to win the match, that makes sense. Just to have now LA Knight chase that title.
Yes.
All right.
And I think he'll be more over in the long run because the fans will get behind him as he chases. Much more so how we've talked about Cody maybe losing a little bit of momentum since he's been the champ as opposed to being the challenger. So it's the same kind of thing, just on a smaller scale.
And it'll take away the predictability because everyone assumes LA Knight's going to win tonight.
Yes.
Me personally, I think Shinsuke is going to win the title. I think LA Knight being in chase mode. Again, like to your point, LA Knight is not like he's losing steam with the fans. He's still mega over. So, but I think that a change and having Shinsuke win the title, and weren't they supposed to go to Japan? I mean, memory serves me correct. Weren't they supposed to go to Japan? Did they go already, or are they supposed to go sometime next year? So I believe that's a part of it too.
I think that's supposed to be part of their tour. Their like European tour. They're going to go to Germany and they're going to go to different places. They're going to go certain spots in Asia. So yeah, I think Japan is on their stop list. So imagine him going to Japan as U.S. champion.
Right.
Well, right now, the way Wrestle Kingdom looks, they could probably book a WWE house show as Wrestle Kingdom, and it would get more fans than the current show booked.
Wow.
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
The next match is a triple threat for the Intercontinental title. Braun Breaker, who is the IC champ, against Sheamus, and against Ludwig Kaiser in a three-way. What are your thoughts? Do you think champion stays champion? Thoughts for one?
I think. Well, I just want to talk about quickly the triple threat because I had a thought on this as all these tournament matches were going on, and of course now we're going to get more with the Intercontinental, these three ways. And when I think about a match like this, when we get Breaker, Sheamus, and Kaiser, this three-way makes sense because it's a feud amongst three people that has to be settled in this kind of environment. It would be like if we did Rollins, McIntyre, and Punk. That triple threat makes sense. All these women's triple threat, it dilutes what the triple threat tonight is going to be because now we've seen 100 of them recently. So you kind of have to, I mean, it'd be like my dream triple threat would be me, Mina Sharakara, and Chelsea Green. That's my triple threat. You know what I mean? Who wouldn't want, But
how you doing?
Cardona, listen, hey, look, you need to take the L already. I mean, you might as well, that 401, give Chelsea the information she deserves.
Oh, Lord.
But this match is going to be really good. I believe this is going to be one of the stronger matches. I think the three of them work well together when you see them, the way the interaction and the timing and all these little things. Yes. I think Breakker will retain because I don't know. I mean, could you go with Kaiser as a surprise? I'm going to say no because we're already going to get one semi-surprise by having Nakamura win. If Nakamura doesn't win, then you could go with this. But I feel like you've already given. Now, again, Breakker wouldn't lose here. He doesn't have to get pinned. You could have Kaiser pin Sheamus. But I feel like I want to see a little bit more of a run for Breakker right now.
I actually like the fact that Kaiser is being presented as a legitimate threat to win this match, based on the feud that the story that they're telling within this feud. Breakker just won back the IC title not that long ago, so for him to lose the belt again this soon, I don't think it's in the cards for this show. Sheamus, the story is more so the feud between the other two, but also the fact that this is the only championship he has yet to win. So that's kind of the sword of Damocles, that carrot that they're dangling over this match as to where they go. Would Sheamus come out on top? Braun? I think Braun is going to come out on top just because of what's going on. But if there's a dark horse in this match, Kaiser would be the one that would make this work, based on the fact that Walter is looking for winners. And if Walter is going to be there and this guy is going to be a mouthpiece for him, that mouthpiece has to be successful. And I think that would make the most sense if that's where they were going. But I think this is going to be Braun's match to win.
I think Braun wins, but although I do disagree with you, Nate, on Lubin Kaiser, because remember, Gunther did tell Kaiser basically to go out on his own. So I think Kaiser's going to be his own man. So I don't think Kaiser needs to be Gunther's mouthpiece anymore, or Walter, as you alluded to before. So I think Braun Breakker will retain the IC championship. You can run it back again and maybe make this a thing that Sheamus has never won the IC title.
Yes.
War Games match: Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Naomi, Io Sky, and Bayley versus Judgment Day, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Liv being the women's champion, Nia Jax, who's also the women's world champion on SmackDown, and you got Tiffany Stratton, who's Miss Money in the Bank. That may play a part in it, and Candice LeRae at Women's War Games. What do you guys thought, Nate? What do you think of this match, and do you think that this War Games match is going to live up to the hype?
They have done everything in their power to make everyone in this match seem important, even Candice LeRae being in it and having what she's going through within that dynamic. There's always those small story that they're trying to tell as far as can Nia Jax, can she trust her own teammate, as they talked about on SmackDown, going back and forth with all of the small jealousies and the small little issues that they have within each faction. And then you're looking at the team that Rhea is on, and they don't get along up until they had that common enemy. So there's a lot that's going to go on in this match. You've got Rhea, who's in the ring with the Cody Rhodes mask over her nose to make sure it doesn't get rebroken because of the orbital ring crack. I think it's going to be physical. I think it's going to be a really good match. I don't know if there's anything that's going to happen that's going to advance the Bianca Belair part of it, but there's always that Bayley aspect that they kind of tease with Bayley and Naomi going into that one. So I think the faces in this match are going to probably win this. That's what I'm thinking going into this match. So
here's where I'm going to come across as a heel. And I apologize, ladies, but you can get in line behind my mother and all my ex-girlfriends who already hate me. We talk about women's equality, right? And we already have a War Games on this particular show. Does it dilute the War Games when you already see one before you then see the main event? That's a question, because there's one individual in particular. we listen to him, Mr. James E. Cornette, who will say, just because you can do a match doesn't mean you have to do the match. So instead of a War Games, would it make more sense for this to just be a traditional Survivor Series match? We're going to talk more about Survivor Series in old school, but what do you think? Does it dilute the main event?
That's not a bad idea.
I agree with the 4-1. I don't think that in this particular case, this year, you didn't need a women's War Games match. Like you said, you could have done the traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match, and that would have made more sense.
Mhm.
That's me.
It's interesting. I think that if you're looking at it as how physical is the match going to be, because we've seen women's War Games matches, and actually they've held up over the course of time. So if they're bringing in the right amount of storytelling and the right physicality in there, I don't think that there would be a problem at how this match would play out. But I understand the thought process, because it's like saying we're going to have 2 Hell in a Cell matches on the card. It's not necessary to do that, especially if that's going to be the main event of the show and the core concept of what the show is supposed to be. But given the fact that it's War Games and what they're doing here, I don't have a problem in this instance with a War Games. But don't make it so that you're just forcing a War Games match to tie in with the women or the men. Have a War Games match in there that makes the most sense for the show. That's what I think is the arguing point for that.
All right, the next match for the singles match for the World Heavyweight Championship, Gunther, of course, Nick like prefers to call him Walter, the World Heavyweight Champion, against Damian Priest. I'll start with you, Mr. 401. What are your thoughts? Who do you think is going to come out on top on this match?
So initially, when they went with this program, I felt like a lot of the promos were kind of lackluster and not really getting me into it. But as we build on, I feel like Priest has almost won over the crowd with some of his promos, and they haven't been as boring as they were. And Gunther now having that sense of uncertainty, that self-doubt has built this really well to make people go, oh, wow, I want to see this, because now we don't know, can Gunther overcome his self-doubt? I don't think he's going to lose, but I'm not sure. It's you know, that's how you want it to be. You don't want to go in going, oh, he's going to retain without question. Because right now, if he lost, would it hurt anybody if Priest regained the title? Because, I mean, you hear the fans behind him now.
Yeah. I don't think that Walter is losing. But what I will say, in piggybacking on your point, Chris, is not only has Priest's input in his promos improved. First, the last 2 or 3 promo battles that he's had are the best promos that he's done in his career. And I'll actually go one step further in saying that Priest has actually been carrying this on his back with his promo work. And that's the thing that's kind of shocking to me, because of that whole story of Walter's self-doubt of what he's doing. His father saying, well, you're not a loser. Don't portray yourself as one. And hitting on a personal side of that and bringing that out. And that's showing the side of Damian Priest that I think most people wanted to see when he first turned face. That's where he's coming across and being on his own, and is coming into his own, bringing this promo style out. And it's definitely working, because as far as I'm concerned, he's carrying this entire feud with just his promos.
I think Gunther will retain the title. I think he'll begin after he beats Damian Priest. I think he will regain that mojo, and I think that's where Gunther will remain still world champion. But I just think him beating Priest and he'll overcome Damian, and I think that he'll get the mojo back going.
Like they're taking piece of armor away, just kind of chiseling pieces of the armor to make him a little more vulnerable as he wins. That's what I think is happening.
Okay. Before we get to men's War Games, last night, CM Punk, Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman, that was pure cinema, Mr. 401.
Yeah, it was. I mean, even just from the jump, when Punk isn't there and Reigns is checking his clock, and he's like, why am I waiting for him? I mean, the little things that, and listen, this is mostly Heyman, and there's no doubt Heyman's writing all this stuff.
Yes.
And then Punk finally appears, and then you get that whole, I don't, the whole backstory there with that. And I mean, look, again, it was perfectly done, and again, that leads us into the match in terms of like what could happen here. There's so many variables that make us think like, wow, what if someone were to turn in this match? Because we don't get the final boss. I don't want to see, like I said this a couple weeks back, I don't want to see one of the Tongans take a loss here. It's got to be a bigger deal with the finish to where it matters. we talk about the original War Games and J.J. Dillon lost. What a surprise, right? J.J. Dillon lost.
Right.
Yeah.
There's something more here.
I definitely agree. Something's got to give. One of them, a Roman Reigns or a Jacob Fatu, or maybe a CM Punk has to take the loss. Like it has to be, to me, one of those three.
And it has to be somebody other than Solo, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, but I mean, as far as the Solo's bloodline, I mean, the only person to me that should if somebody that's going to lose that would mean something would be Jacob Fatu. I guess Bronson Reed right now, but to me, Jacob Fatu on Roman's side, it would have to be either him or a CM Punk. I mean, it would have to be one of those three men that would have to take the loss for it to matter. Like it was one like you alluded to before. I don't want to see the Tongans taking the loss. Listen, I don't want to see Jay or Jimmy or even a Sami Zayn take the loss. It would have to be of those three guys I mentioned. Punk and Roman Reigns yesterday on SmackDown. I mean, that was just well done. It leaves a lot more questions because the one thing I did get out of that is that for CM Punk, Paul Heyman owes him one.
Yes.
Down the road. Don't know what that means,
right.
But it's going to mean something down the road. So there's going to be more layers to this. And of course, as one of our listeners wrote, said that the final boss, there's the possibility of him appearing tonight. So what happens?
Oh, one other thing. How about the fact that Jacob Fatu went over last night in that man advantage? That made sense. You had to do that. So now there's a disadvantage with Roman's bloodline.
Right. Yes. And that's the way it's supposed to work. The heels go in with the advantage, and then the faces can fight up, trying to get back and get to the good graces of fighting from behind. That's what's supposed to happen.
So that takes care of War Games, takes care of the Bloodline, takes care of Survivor Series, which will be aired tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern Time on the East Coast, 3 o'clock Pacific. So Survivor Series will be tonight. Now, our final segment of the day is a segment that we all love because we've been watching professional wrestling not as long as Nate, but we have been watching professional wrestling for a very long time. And that segment is called Old School. So today, it's not more about one of the greatest matches that ever took place, but this was the original Survivor Series, which was held in Richfield, Ohio Coliseum, in Cleveland, Ohio, in 1987, the inaugural Survivor Series. So it was Team Andre versus Team Hogan. What were your thoughts, guys, on this match?
Nate?
Well, I tell you one thing. It goes to show you how an idea can blossom into a almost 40-year success. And if you're looking at it from the standpoint of how we even got there, this was off of the backs of as there was the Thanksgiving tradition, that used to belong to the NWA and Starrcade, which was Dusty Rhodes' creation. And the reason why the Survivor Series even came about was because Vince McMahon wanted to push his national expansion forward on pay-per-view and wanted to start the first opening salvo by going and hurting the NWA Starrcade. Starrcade 87 took place on the exact same day that one took place in Chicago. This one took place not that far away in Ohio. And McMahon used this as a cudgel to beat the cable companies over the head, say, you cable carriers have to carry the Survivor Series. If you don't carry the Survivor Series, you're not going to get WrestleMania next year. So that basically crippled what the NWA's Starrcade 87 would have been. By the way, it was Ric Flair versus Ronnie Garvin in a steel cage for the world title. That was the main event at Starrcade. But here for the Survivor Series, great match, great concept, great crowd, great audience, and amazing how over not just Hogan, but Bam Bam Bigelow on Hogan's team, how over he was. He was probably the most over person in the entire match.
What was the chant? Were they chanting "Let's go, Bam Bam, let's go"? What was the
Yes,
chant?
they were chanting "Let's go, Bam Bam, let's go, clap, clap." That's what they were doing. Hogan would draw out the fans that he would normally do, rip off the shirt and Hogan would go in and do his normal thing. And then, of course, they went to do the tags and get guys in. And of course, it wouldn't be 1980s wrestling without the first person being pinned being the natural Butch Reed. Being the first guy in, the only black man in the match, and he was the first one eliminated. Oh, yes. Total 80s right there. But yes.
Yeah, it was like the horror movie where the black guy has to die first, right?
Yes. And the thing is, you could see it coming.
But by the way, there's so many different things we can talk about within this match. First of all, Don Morocco. They kept referring to him as The Rock, which is funny because he started taking on that moniker more. The size of this man at this point of his life. I mean, did he have steroids for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Because you've never seen a transformation of a man like this. Because in '85, when he was feuding with, was that Steamboat in '85?
Yeah, he was feuding with Steamboat. Yeah.
Okay. He was big. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't a small man. But in this match, oh my God, veins on top of veins. It was just frightening to look at him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was probably the biggest man, not size or height wise, but just in pure musculature and bulk. I mean, he looked like if he sneezed, he'd probably pull a muscle. That's how big he was.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, and we were talking about, I know pre-show we discussed this a little bit, and then the fact that this match and how it led to the rematch of Hogan and Andre the Giant and all the different dynamics in the match. Because while I'm watching this match, I forgot all about how it went down. So when it was a 3-on-1 advantage, when Hogan got counted out, and then Bigelow beat two people, he beat Bundy and Gang, right?
Yes.
Bundy and Gang, and then we're left with Andre. And because I forgot everything, I'm like, wait a second, with the fans behind Bigelow, does he actually win this match? Because like I said, I forgot. And then when Andre won, then I remembered the fact that this led to the rematch.
Yes. And that was the cool thing about it, was all of the dynamics of all of the other wrestlers. Because if you look at One Man Gang, who had only been in the company at that point maybe a few months. So they were getting him over, just people to feed, big guys as they would normally do to feed to Hogan as challengers down the road. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff had just left Bobby Heenan's stable for the second time and went with Sir Oliver Humperdinck, who ended up becoming the manager of Bam Bam Bigelow. Rick Rude had just gotten into the company himself at the time after leaving the NWA. So he'd been there for a little bit, and they were kind of building him up to do well with that one as well. So yeah, there were different dynamics of different wrestlers that had fused. And the reason why Morocco was on Hogan's team was because he was championing the late superstar Billy Graham. Have mercy. Back then, when they were trying to get him after the hip surgery that he was coming back tie-dye and everything. And Morocco kind of took him up, like, you know what? I'm going to represent this guy. I'm going to be in his corner. So those small dynamics, and then the Ken Patera part of him almost killing Bobby Heenan with a belt, if you remember, putting the belt around his neck and yanking him after he got whipped. Yeah, those were the days. That's how you built feuds.
Right. Those were definitely good times. Again, the first Survivor Series, it was Team Andre the Giant pinning Bam Bam Bigelow as the lone survivor. But, you know, one thing I take out of that match also, since you guys alluded to everything else, you know, was Trump Hogan, the sore loser that he was, who decided to hit Andre from behind.
Yeah.
Back then, as a young Hulkamaniac, I was loving every bit of it. But now that I grew, you know, to the adult, I'm like, man, what a sore loser, you know, Hulk Hogan was. But Andre the Giant becoming the very first, I guess, lone survivor, the inaugural Survivor Series, which was the main event, and Team Andre winning that match. And, you know, for his team, and as you guys alluded to before, that led to the main event, which was in Indianapolis in February of '88. And which was at the time with the largest TV audience for professional wrestling, I believe. Nate?
It's still the highest rated 1-hour wrestling show in prime time in the history of television.
Wow.
Yeah.
Think about that.
So that's the importance of this match, because at the time, remember, that was the first time that Hogan and Andre met in the ring since WrestleMania 3, when Hogan beat Andre in a Pontiac Silverdome. So that's how this match became. That's how the Survivor Series became, you know, with the elimination for Survivor Series.
And on the other end of that, the other importance of that is, as I spoke about with Starrcade, That forced Jim Crockett Promotions to move Starrcade from its normal Thanksgiving weekend to Christmas, the day after Christmas. So they went from being on Thanksgiving every year for years and years to moving Starrcade to December 26th. And that pay-per-view's main event was Lex Luger versus Ric Flair. So that's to show you what the impact was of the Survivor Series and how it has ballooned to what it has become today.
Now, I have a question, two questions actually. One, how many more Survivor Series did WWE actually do on Thanksgiving Day?
I think they stopped doing it probably, I think, like 91-ish,
So they did at least
92-ish.
3 of them. At least 3
Yeah,
or
they
4.
started moving it to Sundays on a Sunday, but that was like years down the road. But for a while, it was every Thanksgiving. That was the tradition that they did.
And my second question is, what happened to Bigelow after this match? Because he was clearly over, and it looked like they could have done something with him. Maybe even an IC title run. Did he leave?
They should have.
I know he had issues. We've seen, what is it? The Dark Side of Bam Bam Bigelow, right? He was an episode, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah. In Dark Side of the Ring, they did something on Bigelow. I believe going forward that they wanted to push Bigelow. I don't know if he had gotten hurt or if they just kind of fell out, or the other part of it is Hogan was in the company in the front, and Bigelow probably wanted a little more. And the backstage politics with Hogan, that's not going to happen, brother.
Well, yeah,
So,
but what I was just saying is that pre-Warrior coming in and winning the title in '88 SummerSlam,
yeah.
Bigelow could have had a little run with the title before Warrior came in by beating Honky Tonk Man.
Oh, he should have. Right. That I think that Bigelow was handed a bad hand after the initial popularity of what he went through as being going in as young as he was. And he was only there for about, I'd like to say, a year and a half or so. And then he left and then he went to the NWA for a little bit. So,
But he did have his own demons, though. We know he had his own demons.
Yes.
So you can't just assume it was all WWE and why he left. Maybe some things happened with him.
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right, so that will mark the end of Old School. We touched on pretty much everything. Again, Survivor Series is tonight, so we're definitely looking forward to Survivor Series later on this evening.
6 p.m. Eastern, by the way. It's a different time. It's gone early, so for those that are looking at it, it's not going to be the normal 8 o'clock. It's going to be at 6 o'clock.
Right. So that will mark the end of Saturday afternoon's main event. Of course, next week will be on. It will become my 10th episode on Saturday afternoon's main event. But stop drinking! Drinking! You don't drink on this damn show! You don't drink, Nate! Who the hell are you? You don't never drink on this damn show!
The peep stage.
I'm talking for you. You're the peep stage. Now,
yes.
Mr. 411.
I am your uncle. Your uncle. And guys, here in the South, family, I have blessed the South of my presence of the Uncle Triple C era. Folks, thank you for the house. Survivor Series tonight. We will see you next week. This is Thank You.